Hi everyone, welcome back for day 3 of our article on the novel A Night Divided. I'm Kat.
I'm Reese.
And so we've learned about Goethe's story and we saw that, it had a happy ending. They escaped to West Berlin, West Germany. But why West and East Germany in the first place?
Yeah, today we only have one Germany.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that long ago that Germany was a divided place.
Yeah, you might think that this happened like a long time ago if you didn't know about what happened to Germany after World War II. You probably know that Germany was taken over by the Nazi Party during the war, but what happened after?
Yeah, because Germany lost the war, and then they went through a period of big change over the next few decades, and today's article is going to tell us a bit more about exactly what happened in Germany after World War II. So let's get into the article.
Reading.
A Night Divided. A Night Divided deals with a tense period during the Cold War, 1945 to 1990. The raising of the Berlin Wall began in the early hours of Sunday, August 13, 1961. That morning, people across Berlin woke up to find they were separated from friends and family. The Berlin Wall's origins were in the years that followed World War II. Soon after Germany was defeated, it was divided into two countries. West Germany was a wealthy state because it was supported by the US. East Germany, meanwhile, had strict laws and high unemployment. Life in West Germany sounded better to many East Germans, and thousands tried to escape. After a few years, West Berlin became the only part of West Germany that was easy to reach. Still, the East German government couldn't stop its people from fleeing. For this reason, the Berlin Wall was built rapidly during the night. To many, it looked like a prison wall that trapped over 15 million East Germans. The Wall of Shame was finally torn down in 1989. A year later, East and West Germany were reunited.
Okay, so the article begins by saying, A Night Divided deals with a tense period during the Cold War, 1945 to 1990.
Oh, the Cold War.
That's a long time. That's 45 years.
Yeah, but that's why it was a Cold War.
Yes.
A Cold War means that there was no actual fighting, but there was a lot of getting ready for fighting.
Yeah, and there was a lot of tension, and things were tense, which is the first word that we're talking about. Tense is an adjective to describe a person, thing, or time that is not relaxed, not comfortable because of anxiety, nervousness, or uncertainty. If a person is feeling tense, it might be because they have a big test coming up. If we talk about a period of time like the Cold War or an event being tense, it's because there might be danger around or people just don't know what's going to happen. I really hate that feeling.
I don't think anybody likes tension unless they know that it's tension over excitement.
Yeah. A tense time in history would probably be a time of war or conflict.
Yeah, or maybe worrying about war.
Yeah.
So period here is kind of what we're talking about with time. So period is a noun that means a length of time, usually between two events or 2 points or when something significant was happening. So a lot of periods have their own names. For example, you have the Victorian period, which is when Queen Victoria was ruling England or the UK. That was like the mid to late 1800s, correct? Okay. Then you had, over in Japan, you had the Heian period, which is about 1,000 years ago. You had the Qing Dynasty period in China and Taiwan. So we talk about these periods in history or in the past, but you can also talk about things that aren't part of history. It could be times of your life. For example, the period when I lived in that house. But it should be kind of at least a long time, probably at least a few months, a few years. You can also talk about this in regards to school. So class periods, you say, I'm going to first period, second period, third period. That means your first, second, and third class. Now here we're talking about in history. So this is a period of history, and here's an example. During the Romance period, people wrote stories, made music, and made art about nature and beauty and love.
So lovely indeed. What a nice period of time.
It was.
Well, the article continues. It says, the razing of the Berlin Wall began in the early hours of Sunday, August 13th, 1961. There we are. We have the name of that wall. It's the Berlin Wall, which we learned a lot about in the previous 2 days. It was not a nice wall. It was covered with barbed wire and people with guns.
Yeah, and on the other side, people covered it with graffiti, which means they spray painted it because they really didn't like it. They didn't like that it was there.
Not a popular wall, but one of the most famous walls in the world.
Yeah. All right, and it was part of something called the Iron Curtain. Yeah, so it was a divide between the West and the East at that time. Now, maybe we want to talk a little bit about who was doing the Cold War.
Sure.
It was the US and Soviet Russia, or the USSR. So we were kind of fighting against each other, but not fighting against each other.
Like a kind of indirect fighting.
Yeah, and then at that same time, the Soviets controlled the east part of Germany and the US controlled the west part of Germany. So it was like, you know, communism versus democratic. Yeah. And that's why Germany was divided in Berlin. Now, that morning when the wall was put up, people across Berlin woke up to find they were separated from friends and family.
That was the terrible surprise that Gerda woke up to, right?
Yeah, that was the terrible surprise.
She woke up one day and the wall was coming up and her father and her brother were on the other side and they were separated.
I can just imagine people go, wait, what? Because they probably didn't announce this.
Yeah. And this happens a lot in history. When a country loses a war or breaks down, other countries see that as an opportunity to take power.
Take a piece.
It happened in China, it's happened in so many places, and here, like Kat said, it's the US and Soviet Russia taking advantage of Germany's broken state.
Yep.
So the article continues and it says the Berlin Wall's origins were in the years that followed World War II. Okay, so let's talk about the word origin here. It's another vocabulary word. Origin is a noun, and the origin of something is where, how, and why that thing began, where it started. The origin of something is the beginning of something. In the article, it mentions the origins of the Berlin Wall are in the years after World War II. That means the wall was built just after World War II. The adverb form of origin is originally, which means at first or in the beginning. So here's an example with origin. No one knows the origins of this story, but it is still told to children all over the country.
All right, so yeah, we've already kind of mentioned that this is what happened after World War II ended. So Germany lost World War II in 1944 or 45?
45.
45, okay. And they had to give up everything that they conquered because they took over many countries in Europe. They had to give them all up, and then the other countries that won had to decide, well, what are we going to do with Germany? Because now its government is gone. Yeah. So what are they going to do? Well, soon after Germany was defeated, it was divided into two countries.
Oh dear.
So now we have defeat, this word. It's a very important word to talk about in war, in games. Defeat means to beat somebody or beat a country in a war or a game or sports game, something like that. It means you make them give up or they lose. So if Reese and I played rock, paper, scissors and he loses, I defeat him. Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I won't defeat you.
I'm not very good at that game. I have the worst luck.
Oh, that's too bad.
Well, the article continues. It says, West Germany was a wealthy state because it was supported by the US. East Germany, meanwhile, had strict laws and high unemployment. Okay, so two words to talk about here. Let's start with unemployment. Unemployment is a noun and it is the state of being unemployed. That means having no job or work to do. Unemployed being the adjective. This year, unemployment has been very high around the world because many people are losing their jobs due to coronavirus. The other word we should talk about is wealthy. And wealthy is an adjective and it means has lots of money. Make it rain.
Make it rain!
If you are wealthy, you are rich. But the word wealthy specifically talks about money and having lots of it. Wealthy people can buy anything they like cars, houses, airplanes. Oh, stop. I shouldn't dream about being wealthy.
I think it's okay to dream sometimes.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get so depressed by it.
Just have to wait for my paycheck next month.
Yep.
So an example sentence with wealthy would be, my wealthy uncle paid for the whole family to fly to Greece for vacation.
Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, it's a nice uncle.
Yeah, very nice uncle. So life in West Germany sounded better to many East Germans, and thousands tried to escape. So it's not just Goethe's family trying to escape. People in East Germany are like, I have no job. Everything here is really strict. People are sad. West Germany has a lot of money. I want to go there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about how we mean when we say something sounds better. Now, when we talk about something sounding, looking, feeling, or something like that, adjective to somebody, this is a grammar point talking about sensory verbs. You can tell they are sensory verbs because they tell us about our senses. Sound, look, feel, taste, or smell. Those are all sensory verbs. But if we want to say how something tastes or smells or feels, it sounds how? So we have to add an adjective to describe it. So if you say, it sounds good, it can mean two things. It means it's good to your ears, this music sounds good. Or it can mean it's good to your thinking. Your idea sounds good. Now, if you say it sounds better, it means you think that must be better. So West Germany or West Berlin sounds better. It means Goethe's family thinks it's a better place. Now here's a few more examples of sensory verbs with adjectives. This cake tastes great. That dress looks beautiful. The garbage smells terrible. Or the water feels cold. Those are all sensory verbs with adjectives after them. Very easy to use.
Your explanation sounds good, Kat.
Thank you.
I like it. Well, the article continues. It says, after a few years, West Berlin became the only part of West Germany that was easy to reach.
Really? So you couldn't get to other parts of West Germany outside of Berlin?
I guess maybe they were inaccessible. You just couldn't go there for some reason.
That's too bad.
Yeah. Well, the article tells us more. It says, still, the East German government couldn't stop its people from fleeing. Okay, so the government tried to stop them fleeing, but they still did.
Yeah, they still fled.
Yeah. What does flee mean? Well, the word flee, F-L-E-E, is used in this sentence as a verb, and to flee means to run away from something, usually something dangerous or scary.
Like a flea?
Like a flea, yeah. A flea can also be like a bug that lives on animals.
Yeah, you don't want fleas on your cat.
Ugh, they jump very high.
Yeah.
In the context of the article, people in East Germany were fleeing that side of the city because it was a terrible place to be.
Yeah, it strikes me as funny because the East German government, or the Soviets, I guess, are like, don't run away! It's terrible here, but don't run away!
Right, they're not trying to make things better,
but
they're still trying to stop people from leaving.
Yeah, alright, so, what else could they do? But, I don't know. They didn't want to make things better, so instead, what did they make things wallier? So the article says, for this reason, the Berlin Wall was built rapidly during the night.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about one night, a night divided. This title refers to the night that the wall went up.
Right, like literally overnight.
Yes.
I mean, it took a longer time to complete the whole thing, but...
The basic wall went up overnight.
Yeah.
So here we have this adverb, rapidly, and this, we already kind of know a little bit about it just from context, but rapidly means very, very quickly. Rapid is an adjective that talks about doing something fast or moving fast, and then if you add the ly ending to it, it makes it an adverb, rapidly. Now, rapid is just a bit more formal way to say something is happening fast. You can use it exactly the same way. So here's an example sentence for rapid. This part of the city was under rapid development and grew very quickly over 2 years. So you could also say fast development or quick development. Here's one for rapidly. The band played rapidly and everyone was excited by the fast music.
Ooh, sounds fun. Sounds like the kind of music I listened to when I was a kid.
Probably me too.
Yeah, headbanging and all that kind of stuff.
Punk.
Yes, I was there. Fall Out Boy, the best concert I've ever been to.
Wow.
Well, the article continues. It says, to many, it looked like a prison wall that trapped over 15 million East Germans. That is a lot of people.
That is a lot of people. And especially, you think about that's people in East Germany and especially in East Berlin.
Yes. Well, we have a grammar point to talk about here, and it's about comparisons. So let's talk about that. So the Berlin Wall looked like a prison wall. That's an interesting comparison. A comparison is when we say how two things are the same or different. The article is saying that the big wall across the city looked like a prison wall, though it's not actually a prison wall. We can use the words taste, smell, feel, look, sound, plus like, plus a noun to compare things in this way. It's called a simile, and it's a way of helping the reader or listener imagine what you're describing. Let's have some examples. Your bedroom smells like a toilet. Ugh. Or his singing sounds like a cat dying. It's not a good sound to listen to. Those are comparisons. We have another vocabulary word too, and it's the word trap. Trap is a verb with the past tense being trapped, and to trap something means to catch something and keep it there. You can trap an animal in a cage, and the people that lived in East Germany were trapped in that side of the city by the huge wall that cut across it. Trapped can talk about things that are physically stuck or unable to escape, but we can also use it to talk about how we are feeling. A person that is feeling trapped might mean that they are currently in a bad position and they see no way out of it. For example, you might work in a job you really hate, but you need the money to survive, so you might feel trapped in that job. Even though there's nothing physically stopping you from leaving, you just don't feel like you have a choice.
Yeah.
So an example sentence with trap could be, the children were trapped inside the building when the heavy metal door locked behind them.
Oh, shoot, that sounds really bad.
Sounds like the beginning of a horror movie.
Ugh. Like Jason. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, the people of East Berlin were basically trapped on one side of the city and basically on one side of the country.
Yeah.
So the Wall of Shame is what it was called, was finally torn down in 1989. A year later, East and West Germany were reunited.
Wow.
Just like Goethe's family.
Yes, yes.
Hurrah!
So again, a happy ending for Germany too, but that's very recent history. That's only 31 years ago.
Yeah, it's only 1 year after I was born.
Yeah.
So here we're talking about shame, a wall of shame. Now, shame is a painful feeling that comes from knowing something is wrong, and it's usually something you see happening or something you did yourself. Like if you did something bad, you might feel shame over it. Now, there's a very similar word, guilt. They almost mean the same thing, and I think people confuse them a lot. The words shame and guilt are very close, but shame is more about how you think of the person doing the wrong action, and guilt is about the action itself. So if you feel ashamed of your behavior, you basically think you're a bad person because you did something bad. If you feel guilty, it just means you think that what you did was bad, but that you are not bad. So shame is about you're a shameful person, you are a bad person, or this is a bad government that did this thing to put up the wall and trap its people. So yeah, shame here talks about the shameful actions of the government that did this, and the government was the bad thing. And they also did a bad action by putting up this wall.
They should feel guilty, but maybe they don't.
I don't know. I think some of them do, probably. But anyway, so shame, here's an example sentence for shame. Henry felt great shame about lying to his parents that he had gotten a good final exam score.
So he knew he did something bad.
He knew he did something bad and he felt like a terrible person for it, but he still lied and maybe now he feels like he can't tell the truth.
Shame can maybe teach us to be good people. If we feel shame, we know that we shouldn't do that again.
Yeah. So, and also shame can talk about like bad things we did in our past, our great shame. All right, now we also have this phrase, tear down. And when I think of the words tear down, I actually think of the Berlin Wall a lot.
That phrase is associated with the Berlin Wall.
Because there was a president, Ronald Reagan, who I don't like him very much, but he was the president of the US when the Berlin Wall came down, and he made a speech. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And that was very, very famous. So if something is standing or in an up position, like a wall, and you want to take it down, you tear it down. Tear means pull in that sort of way. So the wall was torn down. And more recently, you can see protesters are tearing down statues of people they don't like, people who are racists. You could even tear down pictures from a wall, or tear down a house. It's a way of breaking something that's kind of high up. Yeah.
Tearing things down. The wall was eventually torn down in 1989.
And it was a big party when it was. People were really, really happy.
Yeah, it was on TV as well, all around the world. People were dancing on the wall and taking hammers to it, and it was a really important event in world history.
Yeah, and actually, I think on the anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down, people still do things like that. I remember at my university, they had like a fake Berlin Wall to represent oppression and strictness and bad governing, and you could take a hammer and you could help tear it down.
Bang.
It was a very symbolic thing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you guys have learned something about history in Europe and Germany specifically. Let's go over to our For You chat question and wrap things up.
For You chat.
So our For You chat question of the day, Kat. Germany wasn't the only country that was divided during the Cold War. What other countries were affected? I'm testing your history here.
That's a really good question. And since I'm from one of the countries that fought the Cold War, I think I can speak to what happened in the US.
Okay.
So we didn't get divided on a line or a wall, but there were people who had very different ideas about things during that time. So if you were, on the side of the US government, then you were thinking like communism is bad, Russia is bad, and anything about them is bad and we should get them out of our country. So if somebody was suspected of being a communist, they could be like arrested and put in jail. And there was a lot of fear around that time. There was something called the Red Scare, when we thought like everybody could be a spy for Russia, or anybody could be, trying to hurt the US. And Russia could drop a nuclear bomb on us at any moment, any time. So people were very, very scared.
And that bleeds over even to today, where, of course, there are problems with every country. Russia and the US are not exempt.
No.
But even today, there is a big anti-Russian sentiment in the US.
Kind of, but not nearly as much. I think the problem now is that, it's been discovered that the current Russian government is spying on the US and has tried to influence the US and actually helped our last election go a different way.
Yeah, so maybe this is an effect of the Cold War. Like the tensions between Russia and the US continue to this day.
Yeah, even though the Cold War is over.
Yeah, hopefully things will get better one day.
I hope so.
But maybe you guys can go home and do some more research on the Cold War. It's a very important part of history, and find out about more countries that were affected by it, because it was worldwide.
Yeah, and I think, it wasn't the only Cold War. I kind of think Taiwan and China have a little bit of a Cold War.
Yeah, it's kind of ongoing.
Yeah, so it's a similar situation. You guys can learn about the history, compare those times, compare the countries. You can learn a lot from this. You can also learn about the space race and how that came out of the Cold War.
Cool.
So for now, we're going to leave you with that. And you're probably wondering now, what is the space race? Go look it up. Now, we're going to say goodbye this time, and that's all from us. Bye-bye.
See you.
A Night Divided. A Night Divided deals with a tense period during the Cold War, 1945 to 1990. The raising of the Berlin Wall began in the early hours of Sunday, August 13, 1961. That morning, people across Berlin woke up to find they were separated from friends and family. The Berlin Wall's origins were in the years that followed World War II. Soon after Germany was defeated, it was divided into two countries. West Germany was a wealthy state because it was supported by the US. East Germany, meanwhile, had strict laws and high unemployment. Life in West Germany sounded better to many East Germans, and thousands tried to escape. After a few years, West Berlin became the only part of West Germany that was easy to reach. Still, the East German government couldn't stop its people from fleeing. For this reason, the Berlin Wall was built rapidly during the night. To many, it looked like a prison wall that trapped over 15 million East Germans. The Wall of Shame was finally torn down in 1989. A year later, East and West Germany were reunited.
Vocabulary Review. Period. Taiwan was under Japanese rule during the period from 1895 to 1945. Origin. The origin of my fear of heights was falling off a ladder when I was 5. Wealthy. The business owner got very wealthy after her products became popular. Rapidly. Annette rapidly showered and got dressed because she only had 20 minutes to get ready for school. Trap. Kathleen was trapped in an elevator for an hour when it stopped between floors. Shame. Martina feels great shame about the bad mistakes and choices she's made in the past.
智慧小补帖
Tense. Defeat. Unemployment.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是www.english4u.net www.english4u.net